Okay, so Cameron, I can't remember. Do I have 2 or 3 hours for the talk?
Uh-oh.
Oh.
Are you having drinks Friday? Yeah, we
Here, go ahead and find a place to seat. All right, so first off, my name is Carlus Henry. I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of people in this room that I love. It's good to see you guys again. A lot of people I don't know. So for those of people that do not know who I am, my name is Carlus Henry. I have 24 years of professional husband experience, as well as professional experience in technology. Most interesting thing to know about me is I'm that tech guy with a ton of kids. So I have 7 children. They range from 21. My 21-year-old is getting married this year, which is ridiculous. It's crazy to say. And then my youngest is 1 year old. He's great. So it's really interesting to see your children love your children. You know, he's probably gonna be the most spoiled child on this earth because not only does he have us, spoiling him, all of his siblings are spoiling him too. So, all right, that's intros. That's me. I need to know more about you because I got to figure out who it is I'm talking to. So these are some of the titles I came up with. I know I got at least one DevOps engineer right there. Yeah. Any other DevOps engineers? 2. Oh, come on now. What about software developers? Okay. What about quality engineers? Well, you guys don't invite, you don't invite quality engineers here? What's going on? Any product owner or business side folks? A little bit? A little bit? Okay, good. Okay, great. All right, so heavy on the engineering side. What it means is continuous delivery is code is always ready to go to prod. Continuous deployment is it always goes to prod with 0 human interaction, okay? And what do I mean when I say no human interaction? I mean absolutely no human interaction. We being clear? Yes or no? All right, perfect. So I know what you're probably thinking because I was there myself. There is no way this could possibly work. If you're working for Amazon, if you're working for Google, sure, those are those vanity metrics that those West Coasters do. But me and my job, it's just, frankly, it's impossible. It's not going to happen. How many people believe that? Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that one. Well, if you did believe it, that's when I'll probably end this conversation. And thank you guys for coming out and any questions. Okay, good. So I'm dealing with a lot of optimistic people. Good. All right, so let's go back to this concept of being impossible. Even if you do believe it and you didn't raise your hand, that's okay, right? It's okay to be suspicious, to not trust that this is something that can happen, because not too long ago, people didn't believe that you can light a room without candles. And it wasn't that long ago that people didn't believe that You can actually travel without horses, right? These are like groundbreaking concepts that people just had no idea to understand. Or even that one day men could fly, right? In each of these scenarios, there were people that thought it was impossible, right? And they thought it could not be done, period. But what was the difference between the people that thought it was impossible and the people that believed that it is something that you could do? How many people are familiar with mindset? That's okay, good. All right, so the difference between a person who does not believe something's possible, that's considered to have a fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, you have the thought of, there is no way that could ever work, so why even try? And you just kind of shut the door on that opportunity. If you have a growth mindset, it's like, you know what, I think it's possible. I'm not sure. I think it is. And you know what, even if I do fail, just imagine how much I'll gain from that experience. So all the inventors, all the people who are pushing the envelope, if you will, got to have that growth mindset. And so that's what I'm asking you guys to do tonight. Just consider having a growth mindset at least for the next 2 or 3 hours, okay? All right, so those that didn't believe in electricity, those that didn't believe in the invention of the car, those that didn't believe man would eventually fly, we got to give them some credit, right? The credit we got to give them is no one up to that point had ever done it before successfully. I'm gonna need a lot of water. Whew. Hold on. Excuse me. No one at that point had ever done it before. But when it comes to continuous deployment, what's your excuse? Right? We all know there's companies out there that are doing this day in, day out, and they're reaping the benefits of this practice, not only at an individual contributor level, but at a company-wide level. It's an amazing process. My hope is to give you guys a chance to kind of explore with me some of the arguments that I've heard against continuous deployment. I'm labeling it CD if you guys can catch on. And then ways that you can kind of rebuke that a little bit. So I guess maybe I should ask this first. How many people are working in an environment with continuous deployment? Hey, all right. Kinda, that's good. Another kinda back there. Great, okay. So, let's address some of the things. One thing I hear all the time, it's risky. Continuous deployment jeopardizes the stability of our software, specifically in production. Have you guys heard this before? Yeah. Is that really true? I mean, let's just think about it for a minute. Is that really true? So let's just paint a scenario real quick. This is typical of most software shops that I've seen. There's 3 features added to a single release in production, right? One of those features has a bug. What do? You roll it back, right? Not just the one bad feature, you roll back all 3, okay? To me, or I should say better yet, in continuous deployment, this would never happen. And I'll go into details why in a bit. I should say at least this. The changes, when you do continuous deployment, the changes are small and they're incremental and they kind of build on top of each other, right? Another scenario. Let's say you work for an organization that deploys code once a year. And I saw some chuckles because this used to be the way, right? Deploy code once a year. You spend 3 months designing, 6 months planning, another 3 months of QA integration tests because you got a big pile of messages you got to get in prod. That used to be like the way, right? No one does. Well, I shouldn't say no one. I can't say that for sure. But if that company was to move to once per quarter, is it now more riskier process or a less riskier process?
Depends on what else they did when moving to that 3-month cadence.
Sure. Generally speaking. What? A little less risky. Okay, what if they move from a quarter to every month releasing? More or less. Generally speaking, I would say if you move down from a quarter to a month, it's less risky. If you move down from a month to 2 weeks, it's even less riskier. Why? Why are things getting less riskier? Who said it? Why is it? There's less change. You can put all kind of changes in a year, right? You can put all kind of changes in a quarter, but the only thing that we're doing is we're changing the frequency of our releases, which means we're minimizing the amount of change we're introducing to production. Typical Scrum organizations, I don't know if this is exactly true, but ideally you want to release every 2 weeks, right? I don't know why we have sprints. It seems like every company I've ever gone to, they all say, how long is your sprints? 2 weeks, right? Does anybody anybody in a Scrum organization here? How long is your sprint? 2 weeks. Yeah. Exactly. So if we are decreasing the risk, objectively speaking, of course, there's some use cases where we're not, but if we're decreasing the risk to production by only changing the frequency of our releases to more often, what do you think is the amount of risk for releasing code every 2 to 3 hours? Is it probably less risky than 2 weeks for the same reason the gentleman in the back said? It's not introducing a lot of change at a time. Even better, let's just say you did break it. Well, in continuous deployment, you can just roll it back. Bam, done. Or who said it? Yeah! Did you hear him? He said, or roll it forward. I'm sorry, am I like loud in the mic? Okay. I can see the little meter go, wah! All right. The more often you release software, the less risky those software releases become. Your organization, whoever you're working for right now, they need this. They don't know it yet, but they need it. And it's going to be up to you guys to share it with them. To say, look, I went to this talk. This man was up here talking about all his kids, 24 years of experience, marriage, husband, and he said, we need to release code more often. Yes, they will love you for it. All right, another concept that I keep hearing or argument is complex. You know, continuous deployment, whoo, oh my goodness. It's just a difficult to manage process. Is it really though? Well, let's take a typical software process. 1, if you have a quality engineering team. Does anyone have a quality engineering team here? Somewhat, okay, a little bit, all right. You have to push code into a staging environment, right? Probably multiple releases or multiple different versions of different code, and you got to make sure it's just right. And then you can tell your quality engineers to say, go, right? And now they can test to their heart's content. Oh no, there's a bug. Now you got to change a configuration or something for a particular app. Roll it back out there. Make sure you're marking what versions are out there when, because they all got to play nice together. You know, even this one bullet item, I was like, wow, that's a lot of work. Version control branching strategies. Who remembers Git flow? Yeah, you do. I used to be a huge fan of Git flow, and it was these gentlemen right here who were just like, no, we need to drop that.
I love Git flow because of you.
No, you set me straight a little bit. Git flow is, hey, I'm saying Git flow, I should say any version control branching strategies. Do you have a branch for each environment? I've seen that. You have a branch for the releases that go to prod. You have also tagging. How many arguments do you get into about major, minor, patch fix? This should be a 1.0 or 1.1. No, this should be a 2.0. No, it's dumb. It doesn't add any value whatsoever to any business organization. What about coordinated release train? Who's doing safe? Oh, you know what I'm talking about. Safe, I won't say it came from hell, but It's pretty close, right?
Smart businessman, though.
Yeah. Coordinating a release train across multiple different entities and meeting with I can't remember the terminology. Anyway, it's crazy.
Release train engineer.
Yes, release trainers. Yep. Tracking the releases. What was deployed with this version of code? I got to process. I've had experience with some organizations where it's just like you got to fill out a form in order to get things to prod, right? Sometimes you got to sit on a phone call and you have to wait your turn to tell the person, hey, I'm going to put this to prod. All these people sitting on the phone. If you're not there, you're not going to go to prod. It's just ridiculous process on top of process. It doesn't make any sense. And your company that does that think that they're really adding value, that they're actually protecting prod, which means, of course, they never had any production issues, even through all that process, right? No. Oh, I should have mentioned the last one. Jira cards and versioning. I threw that in there because I hate it. Everyone knows about the version. I'm sorry, who uses Jira? Okay, you guys know about the version thing in Jira? You guys got a PO or someone that's trying their best, they're trying their hardest to track what features went into what version release. Yeah, it's a nightmare. It's horrible. Now compare that to continuous deployment. Commit to the main branch, it goes to prod. Now, okay, yes, I'm definitely smearing and not going into some of the details. But really, all this process is unnecessary over here. What's in prod? Oh, what's on the main branch? That's what's in prod. Well, what version is it? Who cares? Who really cares? We're at the point right now in my organization or my customer, where we are literally tagging the code with the git SHA, and that's it. No one really cares. No more branching ridiculousness. No more coordinating a release train. You do have to do some of this because, PO likes their reports and have to understand what went out, but okay. These forms, those things, all that can be just automated. Just, yes, I'm releasing a prod. Why do I need to sit on a phone call to tell you that? That's what I'm doing. So typical software practice versus continuous deployment, this is a lot more complex, period. Another argument, continuous deployment, it's hard. Okay, this one I actually agree with. You're right, it's hard. It's very hard. I mean, think about it. Life without continuous deployment. All you gotta do is just write your code and some quality engineer is gonna test it for you. It's pretty easy, right? I don't have to write any automated tests. You could, but you don't have to. That's pretty easy as well. I don't even have to test locally on my machine because somebody's going to test the snot out of it across every environment from there on. Right? Wow, I mean, that's smooth sailing. This is easy, right? The level of testing doesn't have to be comprehensive at all. That's what we got QE for, right? That's how they earn and contribute value to the organization. You guys test this stuff. I see some smirks. I love it. You guys are connecting. Good. I don't have to constantly and continually innovate on how not to break production because there's so many different barriers that I don't have to think about it. Hey, we release once every 2 weeks. I just know a couple days before I better have my code out on stage so the QE can test it. That's it. Well, that is easy. Now compare it with life with continuous deployment. It's not easy. Yes, engineers are responsible for writing and testing their code. The amount of pressure, motivation changes when you know as soon as you commit that code it's going to prod. So you're going to test the snot out of it. Automated tests become necessary because who in the world is going to run through manually testing every particular feature locally? You need to write automated tests. You must test on your local machine. That's really where you're going to do your testing, is on your local machine. You always think of innovative ways to not break production. This is fun. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. How can you deploy this code? How can you deploy this feature without breaking prod? I mean, we all work with very talented engineers. And this is just a pot of yummy goodness that engineers love to soak up because we live on this stuff. We love solving problems. And trying to figure out how not to break prod by introducing new features, it's great. Oh. Yeah. Do you need continuous deployment in order to do these things? No. No. I mean, if you're working for a solid team, you're probably already doing most of these things already. It's just that continuous deployment forces every team to level up. Every team needs to be doing this. All right, how do I get started with continuous deployment? This is the fun part. Well, you know, before we talk about getting started with continuous deployment, we should probably talk about all, you know, the prerequisites that are necessary, right? You can't just jump into this. We got to talk about the prereqs. There are no prerequisites, period, okay? One that I commonly hear all the time is this guy. We need to have 80% code coverage before we start doing continuous deployment. You guys heard this? Okay. This is a lie. You do not need to have the code coverage, period. So consider if you're working for an organization with I would say, a moderate to large amount of code base. Can you imagine how much time it would take in order to bring a low code coverage up to 80% or some other arbitrary number? It's an investment that's just not worth it. Somebody in the leadership seat probably thinks it does, but I am sure if you like, there's ways to talk them out of this. So the Agile Manifesto, which I love, and I'll be honest, I didn't read it until maybe a couple years ago. There's not too much to it, but it's just full of wisdom. The art of maximizing the work not done is essential. Spending time and money on wasteful things is ridiculous. That's why they call it waste. And we don't want to be spending time there. So what's the response? The response is all new code will have the appropriate amount of code coverage and testing. Notice I'm not saying any kind of percentage. Don't say a percentage to leadership. Just try to earn the trust that all new code will have the appropriate amount of code coverage and testing. I don't have it in here. This is a slide I took out, but the code that you have in your system right now that's running in production, it's already time tested. It works. You don't need to test that stuff. You need to test anything new that you introduce into the system. All right. Oh, I'll give you an example. I'm probably going to hit this a little bit later, so I apologize. Oh, excuse me. Actually, I'll wait for later. All right. So inside my abstract, I said, you know, in the presentation abstract, and Kim reiterated, thank you, Kim, the 3-step process for adopting CD in your software projects. The challenge is all of our environments are different, okay? We all have unique people that we work with and for, and unique organizations. So there is no silver bullet on the 3-step process. But what I will offer you is more of a 3-step strategy. Fair enough? This is something that you can take with you tonight. And you can start your journey, start your organization, start your team's journey into continuous deployment. With me? All right, here we go. Step number 1, push a non-consequential change into production. If you work for an organization that needs QE to QE, quality engineering to test everything, this is really important step. Even if you don't, this is an important step, okay? So for example, log when the method's being called, or when something has a certain value, okay? Or create a new API endpoint that's never used, okay? Or add a new column to a database table, unless you're dealing with some kind of wacky automated audit table crap that, you know, doesn't prevent you from doing it, because believe me, there's stuff out there like that. Choose something, anything that allows you to change a small amount of code with no consequences. Then challenge, I shouldn't say challenge, that sounds too confrontational. Have conversations with your team, leadership, change control, change management, whatever have you, about how much testing would be required. It should be none, except for your own due diligence, right? And then say, was the deployment successful? Great. It better be, right? Because we're talking about a non-consequential change here. Try to figure out how much, or identify how much QE testing is required for this. It should be 0. And then how much money, time, effort was saved with this non-consequential change. Make sense? So now you're building a business case that you can go back to leadership and say, hey, look, we did this. It was amazing. No issues. Went to prod. You know, following your normal process. It's okay. Okay? Step 2. All right, so all right, so I got a customer who I have a customer who required all changes to almost be regression tests in all environments by the QE department. Engineers will push code, it goes to QA, quality engineers need to test it there, it goes to stage, quality engineers need to test it there, it goes to prod, quality engineers need to test it there, okay? This happens, all right? So using step number 1, we introduced a low, non-consequential change and asked how much testing is required. They're like, well, it'll be kind of, get them to say, it'll be kind of silly to get the QE team, who's a limited resource anyway, to spend time testing on this non-consequential change. So from there, I created a risk matrix. Low risk, medium, high. Low risk means no QE involvement at all. Once you get to that point, all your changes need to be low risk changes. Period. Period. Okay? So the difference is, well, I said lowest change, it has the appropriate amount of testing. This is the game changer here. This is where I've really struggled with communicating that features are not done with one single deployment. Features are done when we turn it on in production. In the meantime, we're slowly, incrementally adding small changes to prod, working towards the features. This messes all those forms up completely. All the process, well, what's feature releasing? Well, we're not really releasing a feature. Like, what do you mean? Well, we're just making a small change here towards that goal. But what JIRA ticket do we tie it to in order to show what we're doing? I can create one if you want. Go ahead.
So do you still have that last bullet point with organizations that are trying to separate the ideas of release and deploy? Like putting something in prod isn't the same as releasing it. Releasing it isn't until you expose it through some mechanism, take your choice, there's 100 to choose from,
Yep.
for users to use. So like, why are they, if they're looking at trying to count releases at deployment time, it feels like their metrics are wrong.
Couldn't have said it better.
They don't like being told they're wrong.
Oh yeah, don't say they're wrong to them, but yeah. So yeah, I think what you're referring to is they have to get out of this process, this mindset that when I release it to prod, that's the same thing as showing it with a customer. releasing it to the public. It's not. It's absolutely not. And yeah, I'm going to get into that a little bit. Good? Keep going. We grooving? All right. 3-step process. Third, embrace testing in prod. This aligns what you're saying. This is going to be hard, okay? But remember the wisdom of the Dos Equis, right? I don't always test my code, but when I do it in production. No, don't share that. All right, so embrace testing in production. Build systems that can be tested in production without being publicly available. This is another thing that your software engineers are going to love. How in the world do we push it to prod, let people test it? Let me test it in prod without making any effect on our customers. Feature flags. That's probably one thing you were mentioning, right? That's a great option. We use that. I use that with my customer. Scheduled jobs to exercise new code. Consider the example of the API endpoint that you're creating, and you want to know if it works. Well, just throw a little scheduled job in there to call it every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, hour, whatever have you. Look at the logs. Hey, it worked. Or no, it's blowing up like crazy. Or no, I don't have the database connection set up right. I mean, how many times have you tried to push something to prod and like, it works in dev, works in QA, works in stage. We're going to prod. Oh, it's broke because I don't have the database credentials right. That's silly, right? We can do better. Hidden web pages to exercise new things. That's another thing we do. Sure, it's publicly available, but who in the world knows the link to a GUID that you can change on, whenever you want to get to this private page and test some things out? Ultimately, get creative. There's all kind of ways you can skin this cat. These are just some ideas you can use, some, that I've practiced in the past, but I'm sure there's stuff here that I haven't thought of, and I would love to hear if you guys got any other ideas too. All right, continuous deployment. It is a game changer, period. It will strengthen your software development team, and it will just add all kind of benefits for your employer and their customers. I'm of the opinion that this is not meant for the Amazons, the Google of the world. And I firmly believe that within the next 5 to 10 years, that's probably too much, that all companies will move in this direction. And you guys can be the ones to help get them there, period. That's it. Thank you.